A Rich Huffman, thank you for the $5. Went to my first protest ever today. Felt great to be with people that held similar beliefs, especially in Alabama. Highly recommend anyone is able to get involved. Yes, going to protests, touching grass, it feels good. It does. Madeline Gibson, thank you for the 5 and 2. Really appreciate that. Yeah, the Gamers Rise Up subreddit turning far right was such a disappointing turn. Do I have your permission to draw you as a tall buff chick with a fat horse cock? Yeah, go for it. Whatever makes you happy. You know, I cannot get that damn game idea out of my head. The idea of making a visual novel, I can't get it out of my head. The thoughts of it consume every waking moment. I'm truly lost. Tell us, haven't I rambled about it before? We're on the tail end of the stream. I guess I don't feel bad about bleeding viewers away with my rambling. Visual novels aren't that hard to make. Explain, Vaush, we want to hear. Will I subject 7,500 people to my autistic rambling because one person asked me to? Yeah, sure. I've said this. I like the idea. I like the idea of like a detective visual novel because I've yet to play a game that really requires good detective skills. So I recently played Disco Elysium. Disco Elysium is an unbelievably good game. However, it doesn't actually involve being a detective. It's an RPG. But the detective skills are literally handled in game by RPG mechanics. If you give your character high, say, logic skills, they will logic it out. They don't expect you to. Outer Wilds does have mystery elements, but it's not a detective game. Obra Dinn. Obra Dinn is a type of detective game, but there's an element to it that's missing, which is the investigation. I have not played LA Noire, but what I've seen of it looks like shit. Don't care. I like the idea. Okay, can I set you up with the premise, if I may? If I may. Here's what I like. I want this to be properly difficult, okay? Um, Basically, you are the security guard on a transport ship traveling through interstellar space to bring people and cargo to a colony world off in the far reaches of the galaxy. It's indeterminate sci-fi. There's no lore. You're not learning. You don't. It's kept understated. Um, and you wake up, okay? You wake up on the ship. This is the opening. You wake up, there's blood everywhere. There's blood on you, there's blood on your hands. There are corpses nearby. You hear screaming in the distance, echoing in the tiny, cramped halls of this, ramshackle industrial ship. You run around, you see what's going on, and it turns out this is what's taking place, okay? For some reason, everyone on the ship has lost about an hour of their short-term memory, and there are several dead. One of them dead was very obviously killed by you. There are other people who have died, stab wounds, and someone activated a device that wiped out short-term memory. Obviously, whoever did that must have still been alive at the time the device was activated, so they can't be one of the people who are dead. The technological know-how necessary to do this is well beyond the average person. This would have been a very, very specific thing. There are about 15 to 20 people remaining alive on the ship. The goal is this. You find out what the fuck happened, who did this, what the fuck. And the idea would be that it's a detective game with some elements that are obvious and some elements that are less obvious. Of course, there are basic things like you have to get testimonies from people to piece together where they were, what they were doing at the time they woke up from the hour. You only lost an hour of your memory, so you still remember multiple days of being with these people in space, during which nothing suspicious happened, at least not as far as you can recall. But you learn about this and that. However, there are a couple of problems. First of all, to everyone else on the ship, you're suspect number one. You're the security guard, but you're well away from any legal body. I mean, on the ship, there's no law outside of yours, effectively. You understand? You're also augmented. Um, Unlike everyone else there, your body has been enhanced. You're stronger, faster, and there are no weapons on the ship. Everyone's scanned before they come on, including the cargo. There are no guns here. The closest thing to a weapon on board are the knives that you use to cut the food. I mean, kitchen knives, right? Which means that the capacity for violence is limited, and you are the main capacity. One of the people who was found dead was clearly killed by you because they got punched with the force of like a freight train. You know, like there are cavernous holes in their chest where rib and organ have disintegrated into like a soupy homogenate. You know, no one could have done that except you. So immediately, the only person who is known to have murdered someone else is you, and people suspect you. But they can't just act on that suspicion because, again, A, they don't know that you were unjustified in killing them, and B, you're physically stronger than them. You know, they can't really kill you. They approach you with the kitchen knife, you punch a hole in their chest. It's not even close. They're scared of you. So they're willing to participate in your investigation only because they know that if they don't, they could potentially incur your wrath as one of the potential murderers on the ship. So everyone suspects you, and that's a mechanic. You can press people. You can be mean to get more information. You can violate people's living spaces. You can try to extort information from them. But the more you do that, the more they dislike you. If the other people on the ship dislike you too much, you get lynched in your sleep. You still have to sleep. They slit your throat in the sleep. There's a limit to how far you can push this as the chief investigator. If you go too far, they'll just kill you, assuming that you are the murderer and you're delaying for time, you know? And the idea would be, I know I'm rambling, but stick with me, please. The idea would be that there would be two basic kinds of puzzles. There would be investigative puzzles and interview puzzles. And they would fill up in a notebook where you would be able to log bits of sentences and information. Your character would give thoughts on them. And the mechanic to investigation would be piecing together bits of info that are logged in your book, which contain many bits of information, to try to arrive at assumptions or epiphanies. And if you have an epiphany, if there's information you've linked in a way that construes or suggests new information, you can act on that. So basically, imagine two people have given you contrary information, and you have a conversation with one of them who says something that doesn't line up with another timeline. You could pause that conversation mid-convo, link the two thoughts, and you would then have the ability to interject there. There wouldn't be a gameplay mechanic compelling this, no dice roll or anything. You would have to be on the ball about keeping track, remembering, and confronting people. And people, everyone in here, everyone on this ship has secrets. Of course, that's standard for the genre. But in this case, this might be one of those plan cascades where, you know, it gets obfuscated by the short-term memory loss, but it could well be that literally everyone on the ship has some fucking plan, and everything went tits up, and it all got reset because of that device that wiped the short-term memory, and you're trying to piece everything together backwards to try to understand who's really at fault, you know? So there would be two kinds of challenges. One would be the investigative kind, you know, where you're trying to investigate a scene, talk to people, piece together the info. And the other would be interrogative. And this I really like the idea of. Have you guys ever played Deus Ex Human Revolution, I think? There are times where you can talk to people and you try to talk them down like a hostage negotiator. Like, your UI will say, like, this person is upsetty spaghetti. And you'll have like 5 dialogue options, and one of them will be their upsetty spaghetti option. And you press that, and then you don't say something fucking stupid, you know? Like that kind of thing. Those systems fucking suck. They fucking suck. Because the acting and the writing are never good enough to give you the subtle informational cues that you need to make those decisions yourself. The acting is just totally hog wild. But imagine a boss battle, which is you having a conversation with somebody, and they are telling the truth, lying, a half lie, leaving something out. all of it subtle bits of info that you have to piece together, and you get to, yes, don't worry, I know about Danganronpa, but I think it can be done better. First of all, anime games are all bullshit. Anime games will never have good dialogue because they're anime games, and that is an anime game. I'm sorry. I'm talking about really having to subtly understand where a person is going. If you press them too hard, they might think less of you, and if they do that, eventually you might get yourself lynched. If you press them the right amount, how about some people are clearly more receptive to emotional arguments, and some are more receptive to logical arguments, right? So there are people who are very debate bro, like rational. I'm so smart, she should treat me as an intelligent person. So if you try to make emotive appeals to that person, they'll think less of you, they'll make fun of you, they'll shut down. But if it's like a person who's really upset, if you say stuff that might set them off, you might shut them down completely. And the idea would be that every set of investigations would have a chapter finish, and if by the end of the chapter you have not completed enough of the prior investigations, you lose. Basically, imagine there are 8 or 9 miniature puzzles in succession, and then at the end of like a breaking point, if you haven't finished like 6 or 7 of them, you don't have enough info to survive what's about to happen. Maybe there's a bomb planted on the ship, and you only learn that because an investigation opens up after you've done so and so much before. Maybe, there's like a person on there who will, they actually did bring a gun on, and they'll only act if they feel like they're pressed against the wall, but you can, sort of prompt them not to do that with, you get what I'm talking about? Maybe a kind of limited time mechanic, a la Persona, something like that. You've only so much time to do all of this, and you have to be efficient with your investigation. Is the info randomized per character? No, it would be a full through investigative thing. I thought of one thing in particular. One thing I really like the idea of this, because there would be conversation boss battles, right? The other people on the ship are competent and intelligent. You too are intelligent. Your character, the character you're playing at, you can't play as a dumbass. The character you're playing as is smart. And some of these conversations are fairly lax. You're competing with them through dialogue for little bits of information, and some of them are very dire indeed. And here's an idea I like. Okay, just follow through with me. I know this sounds very dumb or nerdy or whatever. So you're investigating, it's a little while into the story. You're investigating something. There are events taking place on board that do not make sense. Somebody lied to you in a way that didn't benefit them, and when called on the lie, they admitted to it, almost as though they didn't understand why they lied to begin with. People are having nightmares, and you're starting to wonder, is there some kind of space anomaly? Is there like a parasite, something like this? But there's a worry that you have, of an astropath, a proper psychic. And it is made clear through context that such a person, a psychic, is a rare anomaly and incredibly fucking dangerous. But there's no evidence of this, it's just a bunch of anomalies stack up. And you find other explanations. A one person, for example, pulled an all-nighter. They did not sleep. It's possible that their errant lie might have just been exhaustion and brain stupidity, disease, you find other explanations. But if you're very diligent, if you're very careful, if you're very fastidious with your investigations, it might lead you into breaking into one of the personal quarters of one of the many people on the ship, an errant, flighty woman, to try to see if she had anything to do with it. And you find it right as she finds you. You find essentially a medium. You find like a relic, an artifact, something that gives it away. She's a psychic. And as soon as you find it, you turn around, she's standing there in the doorway. She steps in, the door shuts behind her without her having to move it, and the UI flips. So up until that point, the entire time, you have investigative UI, your little detective skills, Sherlock this, Sherlock that, but it all disappears. And all you have are prompts in the center of the screen. And whatever is at top, whether it be an ellipses, ... what are you doing? Why'd you close the door? The bottom one is run. You can't run. After that fails, the bottom option, the one that will be present for a good long time, is fight her. You talk with her. She's outraged that you're in her quarters. You're trying to stammer out excuses because for the first time since this investigation begun, you are in the presence of somebody who is unequivocally stronger than you. It's implied that the existence of the ship itself is pretty much up to her whim. She could warp anywhere. She could tear through it. There's really no narrative limit to what she can do. And you are, augmented or not, you are made of meat. So you're talking with her and she's accusing you, why are you in here? And you realize, your character realizes, she's going to fucking kill you no matter what you do. But if you ever hit the fight option, she just kills you anyway. You try to talk your way out of it. You say, I can explain why I'm in here, I'm sorry. She's worried you'll tell the rest of the people on the ship that she's a psychic, because they're a kind of highly feared, we'll say. You say, you won't. And I really like the idea of an interrogative boss fight, except you're the boss to her. As in, the UI literally flips, and you see the choices that you would normally have to click through on a menu to initiate the interrogation happening from her perspective, flipped to you. And the goal is not you interrogating her, it's you surviving her interrogation of you. And it's incredibly difficult because you had to work to get here. But you get rewarded with incredible knowledge if you survive. You know there's a psychic on board, which explains a lot that you couldn't piece together before. And you're just trying to not be killed. That's it. That is your explicit goal. So you're standing there, you're petrified because just being in the presence of one of these things, incredibly dangerous. And even though she's been very, you assumed beforehand that she was a drug user. The woman was very flighty, very out of it, but she's ice cold talking to you. And you realize, you try these rhetorical tactics before your narration, when they fail, you to yourself, you're saying, that is not going to work. I can tell by looking, I cannot lie to her. Or you start second guessing yourself. You think, maybe the only way out of here is lying. She might not be a telepath. Not all psychics are telepaths, after all. If she is a telepath, though, she should be able to read my mind and know that I don't intend on telling other people. Do I intend on telling other people? If she isn't a telepath, I could say anything to her and I might be able to get away with it. She could be hiding that information in order to see if I'll take advantage of thinking she's not a telepath to lie to her. She can hear my thoughts right now, can't she? Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. The idea would be you have a very competent and very straight-laced and very professional protagonist that is quietly having an emotional breakdown, trying not to be killed by, a demigod who's very angry at her being in her room. You get what I'm talking about here? If that could be done well, you get the dialogue right, you write it properly, I genuinely feel like you could have a transcendently good detective experience. I think that. Something not done, to my knowledge, not done in gaming, Yeah. Yes, it's a bottle interrogation as well, so you can have, the idea of those would be a proper boss fight. And every chapter would have, a higher requirement for how much you may have solved, You find out more about the people on the ship and the cargo that you're carrying. You find out more about where you're going. One of the people killed during the initial murders was the captain, by the way, so you're missing some vital information. And you're trying to figure everything out. And the story gets more convoluted and more threads. And I like the idea of it not being possible to solve everything. Some leads will never be followed up on. Some threads will never be solved. No matter how many times you reload a save, they can't be solved. You just don't get all the info. Not every puzzle piece gets to fall into place at the end, but you need to know enough, because if you don't, there are many things that could kill you, in the procession of events. That's stupid? No! That ambiguity establishes the appropriate tone. What people want is their Danganronpas or their number 9 games, the Zero game or whatever, you know, where everything falls into place. But this isn't some like story box puzzle constructed by an omnipotent god or whatever. This is a fucking mess. Yeah, it's not like the Zero Escape games. Yeah, this is just a mess of a situation that you're trying to piece together, and the stakes keep raising and raising beyond the ship. And I want the character to just get more and more frazzled over time. Maybe even to the point where your character starts to give herself bad advice. That's a brilliant idea too, because at the beginning, like, your character is talking to herself, which is a hint for the player. The character is saying something like, you know, this person looks really upset. If I push them too far, they might snap or break down. I should stay calm. That might reassure them, you know. Disco Elysium does do that, and it's brilliant when they do that. I want to incorporate it as a gameplay mechanic as well, maybe in a different way, but and then later on, like way further down the line, like your character, still smart, reads the situation wrong more and more. Maybe the psychic is involved. Maybe there's more to it than that. It could be done in many, many ways, but yeah. If you make this one day, then we will know everything. But you get what I mean, right? Doesn't that sound nice? I think this could be very engaging if done properly, you know. I'll voice act one of the people who dies early, and I'll only show up in flashbacks. There you go. Yeah. It wouldn't be like Disco Elysium in an RPG sense. In Disco Elysium, you can constantly choose what you say for fun effect. In this, there would probably be like multiple minutes of character-driven dialogue. Your job isn't to roleplay as your character. Your character is your character. Your job is to do detective work when detective work needs doing. You follow along, you pay attention, and when the investigations or the interrogations are happening, you piece it together and drive it down the correct line. You know, that would be the idea, I think. Also, of course, the more branching dialogue paths, the more writing you would have to do, and the more voice acting and coding, and it gets more difficult. And I'm rambling about something, I think, you know. Anyway, it's just a hope that I have. But I can't stop thinking about it, you know? I was even doing character design. I like the idea of a kind of, because I was thinking, what's a good future aesthetic, right? When I think sci-fi future aesthetic, immediately because of who I am, I think Warhammer, but I don't want that. That's not, you know, I don't want like a kind of techno-futurist dystopian militarism aesthetic. I don't want, that's not what I'm looking for here. I actually kind of like the idea of conspicuous consumption taking over as the predominant form of social expression. Something where people have in and out clothes, you know? People are expected to dress one way in and another way out. You have people who are dressed to the nines even on a cargo ship moving through interstellar space because they're concerned about the social ramifications of being seen in clothing. And you, as a security officer, are always dressed down, which other people find kind of weird and aberrant about you. Almost like you're being kind of like an activist, you know? Kind of in the same way that French feminists will take their tits out anytime like a car crashes. You know, you wearing like more simple clothing is considered a you know, like kind of a subversive statement. And I like the aesthetic. I thought like a kind of French feminist groups are known for going topless for protests. It's just a joke. I like the idea of ornate maximalist streetwear. That right there is what I'm thinking. That's the aesthetic of the future, okay? I want you to imagine, you know, imagine somebody wearing a tank top that looks like stained glass cathedral windows. Every color looks like it's made out of glass, practically a mosaic art piece draped from your shoulders. And over it, you're wearing a gigantic sleet gray streetwear tracksuit with padded shoulders and like 87 zippers. And you're wearing joggers. How fucking dope. as a baseline, how fucking dope. The idea of the ironic like kind of tech wear, but much bulkier, you know. The Baroque streetwear, I really like that, you know. The ironic juxtaposition of comfortable, simplistic clothing with ridiculously ornate, like glass style clothing, you know. So imagine somebody who's wearing like joggers and Nikes, well, not literally Nikes, but like sneakers, you know. And then they're wearing like a large coat that buttons front, and they have like essentially like a glass bedazzled like cloak that goes over their shoulders and sort of wraps around them like a wraith. So they're the bottom half of them, they're dressed in like this what we would consider to be like jogging clothing. Like you'd go on a run at 6 a.m. in it. But at the top half, they look like some kind of techno priest, you know? You understand? This, I think, that aesthetic, underserved, you could do wonderful stuff there, I think. I think you could do something really, really good. Oh, one other thing. I like the idea of the fact that your character is augmented is something you hide or want to hide at the beginning and only begrudgingly tell others because you know it will make you look suspicious. But you also use it if you're logical enough. You have to piece it together. You have to use this cleverly, but you can take a bit of suspicion off of yourself with one clever bit. See, you're wounded too. You have a knife wound in your leg, not nearly enough to fell you, not nearly enough to do real damage, but as you explain, if you piece it together to the other people there, you can't possibly have initiated the violence because nobody on the ship could have possibly managed to stab you with a knife unless they did so as a sneak attack. Because if you had initiated the violence, nobody could have laid a hit on you. There wouldn't have been a single scrape on you. The fact that there's a real injury would indicate that somebody would have had to have attacked you first without you knowing. And it would be like, imagine how you could piece that together. Imagine you're talking about the fact that you're augmented and people are suspicious of you because you're very strong and that makes you a suspect because you could have killed people much easier than others. And you have bits of info. One of them is your memory of you seeing your injured leg right after you woke back up from the hour of your short-term memory loss. And the other one is you explaining to the rest of the people there that, yeah, you are strong enough that none of them could possibly fight you if they were given the chance. And then you go into a little menu, and it's like, you have little snippets of dialogue and bits of info. You click on one of them, and then you click on the second. The UI draws a line between the two, and your character narrates, oh, that's right, of course. The fact that I'm injured means that I couldn't have possibly initiated the violence, otherwise nobody would have been able to attack me in retribution. And then you can hit that dialogue option in the convo right there and kablamo. You could also have somebody suspiciously think you're making that up. Yeah, true. But like all that, like that would be the idea, right? You know what I mean? What about just sitting in the menu, linking everything to everything, Lamau? My perceived solution to that would be the UI never telling you if you have a correct connection. That is a very punishing way of doing it, by the way. If you design it in such a way as that you literally don't know. What about there are specific epiphanies and there are a number of facts connected to that epiphany and you have to link together enough of them, maybe with some variance. Say there are 5 facts linked to an epiphany, and if you have 4 of them linked together, that's enough to figure it out, and you can have one wrong one. So you can have 5, 4 correct, 1 incorrect, and that would be enough to have the new dialogue option because you've worked it out, you know? But if you have like 3 correct, 2 incorrect, or anything like that, it wouldn't. You wouldn't be able to do anything, you know? Technically, you could pause, unpause, change up, pause, unpause, change up, but that would take so long. And I mean, if you want to like cheese the game, of course you can, but I don't think there's anything I could do to fix that. The goal would just be to encourage good faith engagement. I don't know if there's any way to just prevent people from desperately trying to link everything outside of making it text-based, like you have to type in the epiphany, but that's like those old 90s computer games, and nobody liked that system anyway. It was never fun to use. That's true. An incorrect connection could give you wrong dialogue options or ones that just hurt you. Yeah, because they're illogical. Imagine if you piece together enough wrong ones that you get a new dialogue option and it's just fucking stupid. It's just fucking dumb. And then the person you're talking to is like, "What the fuck do you mean? That doesn't make any sense." And you lose standing with the crew because it seems like you're just throwing shit at the wall. Ah, that's actually really good. Yeah. You could be misinformed. Yeah, you move forward with the wrong idea. It's true. It would be an incredible amount of work to do all that. I'm never going to make any of this happen. I never make any of the things I want to happen. But, I like the idea. At least the idea is out there. Now I've rambled about it. Except for this channel. I made that happen. We would fund it. You guys literally already fund it. Okay, you get what I mean, right? Okay. Whatever happened to the superhero novella you were brainstorming? Still in my head. Those are the two things. It's that and it's this. Those two in my head all the time. What would the death mechanic be? Well, I like the idea of the death mechanic being a wall, an event that happens that if you don't have enough knowledge to overcome, you just die to it? And that dying to it can give you info on how to better solve or investigate stuff in the future? Like maybe there are 6 mysteries, and of them, only 4 are plot relevant, and 3 will need to be solved in order for you to have enough info to realize, holy shit, there's a bomb in the cargo bay, that kind of thing, right? I just like the idea of really challenging people's detective skills, because one of the things that I really liked about that NCS channel on YouTube, where the criminal psychologist was analyzing the behavior of the criminals when they were being interrogated by the cops, the JCS, thank you, the JCS. I really like, imagine you're sitting there trying to get answers out of a person who's lying to you. That's not something that we do in real life that often, is it, right? Like, if we do, it's about really trivial stuff, like there's some interpersonal dispute or somebody did something petty. But when the stakes are there, when lives are on the line, that's not an experience we have really in day-to-day life, but it is something that I find satisfying on an intellectual level. That's why people like Sherlock books. Everyone likes that. The detective thing. Everyone wants to be the detective. That's why true crime fans are such pains in the ass, you know? Because they listen to true crime and then they think they're detectives, and then they're like calling the living relatives of dead people, and they're like, have you considered that it was the neighbor with the knife? Or whatever. Like, everyone wants to be the detective, and so often detective systems in games are like so trivial. They're so paltry, or they're childishly simple. It's very like, or it's determined in large part by like speech checks. That's the worst of it, man. When you can have a good mystery, but then your character has high int, so it's that you just see the dialogue option like int check 11. Oh, it was them who did it, and it's like, I wanted to figure that out. You know? How would the game convey people lying that isn't intricate facial animation? Nope, only dialogue. If this is being done like a visual novel, people will be still drawings, maybe with a couple of expressions. Uh, you know, um, that's it. But it would be all dialogue. I feel like all dialogue with a couple of cues might be enough. So all dialogue, you're having a convo, and then in the text box narration, X character scrunches up their nose. Well, what does that indicate? Disgust? Discomfort? You figure it out. I mean, that's a pretty obvious one. What about the character you're talking to looks at their backpack? Well, maybe if you've done some detective work and you know what the backpack contains, you might be thinking, oh, they're looking at like the portrait of their lover back home. They might be feeling nostalgic. Maybe a next dialogue line you should choose is something like, you know, I want to solve this mystery because I want us all to make it back home. And you think like, oh, that would be so good. Earlier, you check through the bag. Oh, it's a photo of her lover. This isn't relevant. Then later, you think, what are they looking at in there? Well, the only thing in the bag is the photo of their lover. Why would they be thinking of that? Maybe it's nostalgia. You bring that back, the text option, something like that. Bam! That's good. That's what I mean. Right there. You piece it together yourself. Nothing in the game says that would take a lot of writing. That is true. However, writing can be done. Well, that sort of thing is really obvious, why it's super fucking hard to leave little details in a book, because you get like, oh, they pointed out some emotion that's important. That's true. Well, the goal would be constant ambiguity and misdirection as well. In real-life investigations, you constantly find red herrings. Happens all the time. Not everything is some neatly put-together puzzle. This is one of the things that I don't like about Zero Escape, or Danganronpa, or whatever. I like the detective element, but every time information is brought up in one of these games, you know that it's going to contribute to some realization. But you should throw red herrings in there. People should sometimes lie to you just because they don't like you. Not even for an ulterior motive. So you should ask someone a question about their background, or like, what did you do before you came on the ship? And they should be like, I worked in the fucking docks. And they didn't. But they just didn't want to answer because they don't like you. And then later, after investigating, you feel like, well, why'd you lie to me? Like, I thought I knew something about you, and I made assumptions. Why'd you lie? I didn't fucking like you. And that's it. Simple as that. Maybe they say it in a flippant enough way that a good ear could suggest to you they're not telling the truth. Like, they say it, for example, instead of, oh yeah, I work at the docks. Oh yeah, I work at the docks. Like that. That's all you need. Are they telling the truth? Tell me, is this man wearing 14 pounds of mosaic glass off their shoulders telling the truth when they say they work at the docks? The imperious tone of this man suggests to me, perhaps not, figure it out. So this would be voice acted? It would have to be voice acted, yes. It would have to be voice acted. Would you want a log of clues and stuff, or would you just have to remember? A log. No, you should not have to, like, remember anything. Everything important should be logged. But a lot of info would be logged. That would be the thing. You could have subdivided chapters. Day 1, day 2, day 3, did this, did that, did this, and you would have to remember where the relevant bits are. So, for example, you would remember every detail of a conversation you had with another. Say your supernatural memory is a component of your augmentations. Fine, narrativize it if you want. But you would have to think, didn't I hear something contrary to this back when I investigated? Who was it? Flip back to day 1, investigated person Y. When was it? Oh, right. Beep. And then there would be like a thing there. Now, that would require a lot on the player's behalf, but I feel like if you're truly interested in the mystery, really invested, finding those bits of info should feel like taking a fucking crack hit. And I know, because that's how I would feel. If I was having a convo with somebody and I thought, wait a second. Wait. And then I was like, wait, didn't they say something? Yeah, right there. You click on that, drop menu, and you have a new text box option. That feels so good. That would feel so fucking good. And the whole game would be about that. And maybe it'd be frustrating searching through the dialogue options. I totally get that. But maybe with a good search system, archived properly, I feel like it could be manageable. A lot of work, but, The nice thing is, a lot of the work would be about building the framework. I feel like once you get, like, the logistics of where the info gets managed, the rhythm of how everything flows, the system's built, it becomes more modular, easier to build new things. Of course, it still has to be written and voice acted, but remember, the goal here is not to produce an RPG. There aren't 57 branching options out to the end. There isn't the ending where you become the king and the ending where you this, that, the other. It's not an RPG. Your character is your character. The point is to solve the mysteries. If you succeed in solving them, you will live a little while longer, and if you fail, you will die, as well as maybe a great many other people. Those are the stakes right there. You're not gunning for the ending where you get appointed Grand Poobah of the colonial province. It's literally L.A. Noire. Well, L.A. Noire is a detective game as well, but I feel like I saw L.A. Noire. It just does not look that good to me. What if you had like a make connection button that lets you take one bit of memory in the UI and lets you take back the memory UI and choose not a piece of information true gets revealed in it? Seems way. Yeah, that could be a way. It has multiple endings and you never know if your ending is the best. I want being able to reach the ending at all to be the accomplishment. Surviving will be the accomplishment. I want this to be properly difficult. Obviously, you can always cheese your way through, and everyone can look up a guide online. But if they don't do those things, I want just making it out. That's how it works in an investigation, right? A detective in a real investigation, you know, they don't get the good ending when they fix everything. The good ending is finding out what happened to them. That's what does it for them. That's the good ending. If your fans make the game, will you write and direct it? Nope. You all can do whatever you want. I will never cooperate with any of my fans. I will never work with any of you. Good luck and Godspeed. If I ever do anything, I do it on my own. I love you. What happens if you get it wrong and die? Can you narrativize your save states, or would you only die at the ending? You could probably like save state every morning. Like you might have if there's like time slots, you know, it's like going back, like the bomb goes off. You go back one day on a save. Oh, this is enough time for me to do this one other thing, and then you would fix enough for it to, you know, allow you to survive. You have to play Return of the Obra Dinn on stream now. I played it off stream. It's a phenomenal game. Why does your mic sound like that? AC. Not gonna happen, Panic Stasis. Sorry, I know enough about game development to know that haphazardly jumping in with other people just like that is usually a surefire recipe for bankruptcy and disaster. If I ever do anything, and I won't, again, because none of my brain projects ever come to pass, if I ever do anything, again, won't. But if I do, it'll be me diligently working on it. You know, building a demo of it, like a small sort of preliminary section. You know, getting amateur voice actor work, releasing that, seeing if people like the concept, and then seeing whether or not I should do more with it. Crime Collector, the knowing about the psychic might give you bits of evidence that can make it easier to do a couple of future investigations. Also, it could just be fun.